Don't be afraid to end your suffering early.
Hmm.
Don't be scared that if you go to AA that you might end up, getting better before you really need to. Because that's what happened to me was I kept thinking I was going to be missing out on something. And so I went down to the bottom of all the barrels. I mean, to this day, I lived in so many cool places. When I go back to visit, I'm like, I didn't even know I lived this close to SeaWorld
Right.
because I couldn't see past my local bar.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to get a little bit healthier a little earlier than you'd planned. It's not so scary.
I heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs. Don is really picking on me with this. I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California. See, I don't even need to read a script in order to say that. Why does he do that to me?
Because he's just tripping you up. He's trying. He's really trying to see if you can read. I am Alice, an alcoholic in Oakland, California.
Don tried to mess you up too, but you caught it.
He did, but I got it. Sam, are you honest?
To a fault. Here, let me pull out my fourth step. You ready? This might take an hour or two.
I know.
Let's do a fifth step right now.
No. Okay. Are you open-minded?
I am so open-minded that I don't even know what I think.
Wow. Well, according to the second appendices, you're not going to be caught in everlasting ignorance because of that. So good for you.
Woohoo!
Are you ready? Are you willing?
And able. Actually, I am extremely willing. I'm willing to read this listener feedback from Joe A. in Grafton, Wisconsin. The subject is HOW medallions. Oh, so that's why you're asking me all this. Okay. Joe writes, hello, Don, Sam, and Alice. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I just celebrated 12 years by the grace of God. The medallion I received at my home group had HOW in the middle of where the Serenity Prayer is. I heard a story that they lost the HOW punch and now they're blank inside. Is there any truth to this? Why don't they bring the HOW back? Quick little aside here. We don't know because AA doesn't make medallions. That's done by vendors out in the world.
Yes.
So we just don't know about that part. Joe continues, my new sponsor had me going through the steps again and really drove home the importance of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. It's definitely confirmation that God is working in my life because I'll admit with longer-term sobriety, I was starting to feel a little blank inside and losing sight of what a gift it is to be sober. I truly cherish my new medallion and made a necklace out of it. It's good to have the HOW working in my life again. For those struggling currently, you don't have to. It's a choice. Getting back on track takes time, but I learned to double down in meetings and seek those who have what I want. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. One of the things about how that really is a standout in my recovery these days is how the rearrangements of the letters make it who. And that it's not really how we do this, it's who we're connected to that makes it possible. It's this cultivating a relationship with our Creator.
Oh, you're being so serious about this. I was going to totally go to what does an owl say? Woo! Woo! That's for you, Don.
That works too.
Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. These are key, aren't they?
Yeah, indispensable.
Exactly.
Those are the words the book uses, essential and indispensable.
And that's why we have you here, Alice, because I don't know anything about this book. I mean, I've been around for 20 some years, but
Not true. It's not true.
That's why I bought a copy of the Plain Language Big Book and I love it.
I understand that around the country, maybe around the world, people are starting to do plain language big book studies. And so I'm excited that we as a fellowship are embracing a new part of our program.
I am too. I'm excited that one of the clubhouses here, their Facebook private group, they've got a conversation going about getting one of those studies started. And I'm thrilled about it. Absolutely.
Okay, I have something for you today.
What you got?
I have an amazing opportunity.
What?
We have an amazing guest today.
Oh
Amazing opportunity.
my gosh. And you know what? I know who it is.
You do?
I do. Today's guest is Kelly P. in Missoula, Montana. And here's something really cool. Kelly was recommended to us by Chrissy S. Chrissy said, I'm recommending her because she is such a steps solution based ball of love, light, and charisma. I have enjoyed hearing her story many times throughout the years. Whenever she speaks, people always say, I could listen to you talk all day. She is funny, witty, and spiritual.
Wow.
Wow. And so Kelly's got a lot to live up to now, right?
Absolutely. And that's the trifecta: funny, witty, and spiritual.
Yeah.
And we're going to also include Kelly in the Ask It Basket question. But first, the news.
Did it, 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 did it. Listen to playlists of members' AA stories on the AA Grapevine YouTube channel. Get inspiration for your recovery and then share your own story. Playlists include Sober Women, the Grapevine WIPA World Tour, Blessed, Voices of Men in AA, Willingness, Coming In, A New Life. There are also ASL and Spanish playlists. Search AA Grapevine on YouTube. Our 12 Steps is a brand new collection of stories from AA members about working the program's 12 Steps of Recovery. Each chapter illuminates a different step through the experiences of a wide variety of AA members. This volume features all new, up-to-date stories from the pages of Grapevine, the International Journal of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is great for sponsees and step meetings, and it's only $13.99 at aagrapevine.org/books.
Hello, Sam and Alice. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Kelly. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is October 1st of 2009 for realsies. And my home group is the No Name Group here in Missoula, Montana. And my sponsor is Paula P. out of Champaign, Illinois.
Kelly, we're so glad you could join us today. Thanks for sitting down with us. And we are absolutely loving you already. And we haven't even really gotten to talk a whole lot.
All right, back at you both.
For the listeners, I just need to let you know that Kelly is vibrant visually. Like, what a joy to just be here with you. She's got good light. She's got a beautiful background. Boy, we're going to have fun today.
You know it.
So let's dive right in. What was going so wrong and terrible and miserable in your life that you, oh, wait a minute. What brought you to AA?
I was walking around breathing without a real heartbeat or purpose. I come from a long line of alcoholism and alcoholics on both sides of my family tree. However, on my dad's side of the family tree, there's recovery. So that made for a pretty in my face understanding at 16 years old that I wasn't succeeding in living. I was flunking out of high school. I was having experiences that left me feeling dirty and icky. I believe we call it incomprehensibly demoralized. Didn't need to look that up. I clearly knew what that meant. I didn't really let it connect with me until I was about 27 and started like digging in my wrists and really creating like alternate universes from bar to bar to bar to bar.
So it was in your 20s then that you started experiencing the consequences of drinking that were just more than you could bear?
Literally, probably at 17 it started. But at 21, I went to my first meeting.
Okay.
I had gone to therapy. What really brought me into Alcoholics Anonymous to where I was like willing to really admit that I had a drinking problem was just my literal inability to feel better. You know, the booze and the drugs and the guys and the moving and the beach and the here and the there. It quit working to give me any sort of feel better. I could not feel better.
That's a bottom. You know, people often talk about the bottoms that are outside, right? But I love, Kelly, that you're talking about the bottom that we hit inside. I couldn't feel better.
at 16, I started having bottoms to where like a lot of people in not alcoholic circles go, oh my God, well, that must have been it then. No wonder she did this, or no wonder she went to treatment, or, divorced or whatever. I had those starting at 16 every year, a couple times a year, like bottom schmottom. I'm just gonna live here.
We can take a lot of pain, can't we?
Kelly, I would love to hear how you talk to people you work with about this. That the bottom is where you stop digging. That the bottom has a basement every time. How do you get people to hear that?
When I work with women and they're describing, their outer consequences, like you said, like, lost my job, losing my marriage, in court again, losing the kids, that is like bottom schmottom. What it is like, I just have to say, are you done?
Maya Angelou's quote about people may forget about what you did, but
Yeah.
they will never forget how you made them feel. All of the things that I did in my drinking and all of the stuff that went wrong, those things were not the things that made me stop drinking, made me like real, I need to stop.
Yeah.
It was how I was feeling about it.
I was feeling. Which is
Yeah.
why I'm really grateful, Kelly, that you're talking about the how you felt, right? Because that's the thing. And people come into Alcoholics Anonymous and they don't have the outside stuff sometimes. And they think, oh, maybe I don't really belong here.
For me, that disease of perception, man, I was so manipulative in my own little heart and soul, my own little Kelly disease, that it was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I missed another day of work. And then by the end of the apology, I'm like, and F you anyway, blah, blah, blah. I could not apologize to save my life in my cups. I couldn't do it.
I mean, I will say that when you look at the stories in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, right, there's three sections of them. There's the founders, right, the pioneers, we call them. Then there are the people who nearly lost it all, but didn't lose it all. And then there are the people at the very back, right, which we think of as low bottom alcoholics. And I think the value in making that distinction for people is you don't have to wait until you're gusto bravado living in a freezer on the side of the railroad track. You could come in out the cold right now. And I do think that for people outside, there's this image of Alcoholics Anonymous, that it's really for the guy in the trench coat with the brown paper bag. But Kelly, you had family. So what did you think of Alcoholics Anonymous before you got here?
I thought it was a yellow legal pad with names written on it, and my dad going from family member to family member, being like, my bad, my bad.
Oh, wow.
That was
Okay.
my first initial, like I was 13 when my dad sobered up. And so that's what he did. He had a yellow legal pad. And my first taste of it was like phone calls. Like he was on the phone a lot and he did a lot of service. So my first initial thought of Alcoholics Anonymous was like sterile. And, I was 13. And by the time I was 16, I was a full blown alcoholic, knowing that I was. So my first foray into Alcoholics Anonymous was my dad got sober. A year later, his only sister got sober. And 2 years later, her oldest son, my cousin, got sober. So
Oh,
all of my drinking was surrounded by, I knew they had this connection with each other.
I'm hearing a sense of being apart from.
When I knew that I was an alcoholic, instead of be like, oh, I'm gonna have to quit drinking someday, I'm like, gonna have to keep my distance from this. But I came in to AA with a resolve, with an acceptance, with an idea to stop drinking when I went to treatment at 28. I slit my wrists and I ended up in treatment in February of that year.
I don't want to minimize this by any stretch. You tried to kill yourself, and that's part of my story too. When the thing that's worked for me for so long doesn't work anymore and I've got nothing else that works, killing yourself seems to be the only option. That's where I was.
I was like, you know what? I'm walking around. I look like this. I was vibrant. I love fashion. I'm fun. I'm funny. But I had nothing inside to back that up. I was so hollow and so full of fear. So I was like, you know what? F everyone. They'll cry when I'm gone.
yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I love you for saying it, Kelly, because a lot of times there's shame for people who are coming in
Mm.
because they have suicide ideation or because they've made an attempt, not realizing that that is a very common thing because our bottom is such a dark, depressing, hopeless, despair-filled place that suicide, it can get worse than how we're feeling.
So, for us not to dwell on that part of it, let's talk a little bit more then about what happened next.
I am the kind of gal that got sober in stages. I got honest in phases. For all intents and purposes, my last drink should have been at 17. And I knew my last drink should have been then. And I knew it and I knew it. So I had my last drink in 2002. What part of my story is just thus that it's easy to quit drinking when you're doing drugs. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. For 7 years.
Yes, miss. For 7 years. I got a sponsor. I got a home group. I was sponsoring women and talking from the podiums. There's countless CDs of Kelly P where I am just not sober.
Now, there's some honesty for you. Thank you for being honest about that.
You know what? My very life depends on it.
It does, doesn't it? I've got a similar story about that I'm not going to go into. Something changed. You decided to get a sponsor and really work the program in an honest way. What happened?
Well, I had had a sponsor, and bless her heart with her patience and her love and non-judgment in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for, not actually shooting me. I always felt like they kind of propped me up and blindfolded me and gave me a smoke, but they never actually shot me. That's my joke because I really wanted what they had. I belong to a home group where you wear skirts and you talk from the podium and it's a speaker meeting and that kind of sobriety. And I wanted what they had. So I finally just decided to do what they did. Drugs had their bottom just like drinking did. Like, oh, this isn't feeling good. And quite frankly, they're hard to get. The kind I was taking, I was doing them with doctor shopping and I got busted. And I was grateful for it. I'll never forget the nurse said, "Your kid safe?" And I went, "Yeah, my husband's sober, And she said, "Good." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I called my sponsor. I said, "I've been lying." She lived 25 minutes in town from me. And like somehow, some way, miraculously, only in the way that Magic AA does, she showed up in my driveway like 8 seconds later. And there we were face to face. And I said, "I've been lying. I'm not sober." That was the beginning of my real
Of your
sobriety.
real. What did you do then? I assume you worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous?
I did. I rolled up my sleeves and I went through the steps as never before.
It doesn't matter when you come all the way in. It
Mhm.
only matters that you come all the way in. Because this story is not unique to you. There are other people that I know personally that have this same story of I had a sobriety date and I had a position and I was like Miss AA, Mr. AA, but I wasn't all the way in. And so it's so hopeful for you to say, I didn't spontaneously combust. I didn't get shot for showing up and telling the truth. People welcomed you back in.
With open arms. You know, my one of my mottos in AA is like, "Oh honey, you're just right on time." Like you're just right on time.
Yes.
You're not a second too late and you're not a minute too early. You are perfectly on time when you get here.
So, Kelly, talk about your current service in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd love to hear how you're shining the light.
One of my favorite things to do is to take Alcoholics Anonymous meetings into our jails and our institutions. So I go once a month to our local corrections facility and bring meetings in there for the women in there. And, 3 or 4 times a year, I'll go into the mental health ward and then the treatment center in a neighboring town. I love to do that. And then I have a service position in my home group. We've just recently combined CPC and PI.
Real quick, what is CPCPI?
PI is, I believe, public information,
Mhm.
and CPC is cooperation with the professional community.
So, you've got some hospital and institution service commitments, and you've got public information. And what about sponsorship? People who know me know my favorite number of sponsees is zero, right? I sponsor a bunch of people, but zero's my number, man. I'm perfect at zero. Tell me about your job of walking people through.
Well, I love you for that because I say at least a few times a year to my sponsor, I want to fire all my sponsees, or I hope they all fire me.
Either way, either way.
I sponsor a lot of women. I do, and I always have, and my number's not dipped below, double digits in a long time.
Wait. Did you just say your sponsees have not dipped below double digits in a long time?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. For me, that would be unmanageable. How do you do that?
that's just how sick I am, is the honest to Pete truth. And, it ebbs and flows. Anybody under 5 years, we meet every week. We go through the book. We're always in a book. And then my women 5 years plus, we meet every other week and we just sort of like check in. So it's not like there's something magic about 60 minutes a week. Don't have that. Don't do it.
I would love for us to keep on doing this, and we could turn this into a 3-hour show, but
It's time for the Ask It Basket.
what's that?
That's the name Bill W. gave the basket that was passed around for questions. We want your questions for our guests.
General recovery questions? Newcomer questions? AA history?
Got a question for the Ask It Basket? Go to aagrapevine.org and click on podcast.
And now, let's dip into the basket.
We received this great Ask It Basket question from Pat M., who writes, how do you know when you're powerless over alcohol and that your life has become unmanageable? This was my go-to question when I was new, mainly because I didn't really get it, and it helped to hear other people's experience with this.
That first step, it's a stumble for a lot of us, isn't it?
For a lot of us, yeah.
Kelly, how did that show up for you?
I knew I was powerless over alcohol for most of my drinking, but when my life finally became unmanageable to me, I mean, everybody else knew my life was unmanageable. That was really it for me. When I put all my effort towards wanting to stop drinking and realizing like, oh, I actually can't.
I got here at 26 and I didn't think that my life was unmanageable, and I didn't think that I was powerless over alcohol. I mean, I had all my teeth. I was just coming in out of the cold. I was going to get a new outfit and a new job and, get a new dating situation and move on. You know what I mean? Like, people who were powerless over alcohol and whose lives were unmanageable, they were having seizures. Like, what are you talking about? But I got lucky. I got into hospital and institution work really early in my recovery. People helped me understand that I had a threefold problem, right? It wasn't just alcohol, right? It wasn't just the mistakes, like, where's my other shoe and how did I end up here and where's my car? It wasn't just, it was that I kept making the same decision over and over and over and over and over again to drink, thinking that I was making a choice. If you make the same decision every time, it's not a choice. When I understood that, I realized, oh, maybe the alcohol's making the decision for me. So the unmanageability is, I think, tricky for me when I look back, because I had some of the stuff in place. So it didn't look like it was unmanageable, but it was unmanageable inside. How about you, Sam?
I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous when I think it was 18, maybe 19, but I think it was 18. And I did that because I knew I didn't drink right. Normal drinking was not having a handle of vodka under your bed at your parents' house and sitting in your room drinking warm vodka shots while watching Star Trek. Yes, I'm that nerd. And so I knew I didn't drink right. But what happened was, like, AA scared the hell out of me, and I ran out the doors as soon as the meeting was over and didn't come back until I was 32.
Wow.
And the reason I didn't come back was because I hadn't experienced consequences for my not drinking right. And then those started to show up. And that was the beginning of the very slow awakening that my life was also unmanageable. I got that I was powerless over alcohol. And I think that a lot of us out there who are proudly calling, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, while we're still out there drinking,
Yeah.
I think we've already got that, yeah, alcohol's in charge, but we think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Unmanageability showed up where I'm having my job threatened, that if I don't come in, I'm going to lose my job. But my hangovers are so bad that I don't go to work. And, well, I'm not going to drink today. And then on the way home, I'm at the liquor store picking up another bottle. The unmanageability showed up, and my unmanageability drove me to that suicide attempt. It was that thing of, I really can't do this. I came back and I drank one more time 40 some days later. And that was the real acceptance. And I think that's a key part of this, is acceptance that
Yeah.
I am powerless over alcohol, and acceptance of my life being unmanageable.
The thing I love about Pat's question, and again, Pat, thank you for the question, is that alcoholism is the only known illness, disease, that makes you think you don't have it. That story that you're telling, Sam, of it's not until I was in AA, surrendered, and I drank again, that I was like, oh boy, the jig's really up. What a great Ask It Basket question.
Absolutely, Pat. We really appreciate you sending that in. You got us in a great conversation on that. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure getting to chat with you.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for all your service to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right back at you guys.
It's time for listener feedback.
We received this email from Brian. Subject, dating in sobriety. It's been edited for time.
Hey, Don and Sam. Wanted to thank the two of you as well as Alice for all the good work you're doing. I wanted to send a note concerning episode 24 from season 6. The topic of praying in relation to dating really took me back to early sobriety. I got sober finally at the age of 22, so dating was definitely something I had to deal with. However, unlike Scotty, I didn't seem to invite my higher power into the mix until after a date. I'd arrive home after a date. When I say I arrived home, what I really mean is that my date would drive me home, as I had no license, which seriously diminished my already limited cool factor. When I'd get home, I often found myself in my nightly prayers asking my higher power to either grant me another date with this person or, if it went particularly well, accelerate the process and make her a prospective marriage partner. The plea never seemed to work out. After a while, I received a spiritual insight. God never seemed to answer this particular prayer, so after one relatively good date, I decided to change the narrative. This time, instead of praying for more dates, I prayed the opposite. Please don't let me have more dates with her. Please don't let this work out. Brian? I had found the answer. My higher power always seemed to answer the opposite of my prayers, so I figured I'd be on another date with this young lady soon. As you can imagine, that didn't happen. I quickly learned that my higher power wasn't going to be fooled into anything. Needless to say, that's a good thing. Who knows where I'd be if it turned out my higher power was manipulatable. Did I say that right?
That sounds like a word you'd throw at Alice.
I appreciated being reminded of this experience. I have yet to listen to one of your shows where something like this hasn't bubbled up. Thanks again for all you do. Brian, Southport, North Carolina.
Brian, the grin on my face, I'm sure you can hear it. This is a great little share. Thank you so much for talking about this because, being able to manipulate my higher power, that really would be a dangerous situation. I might have lasers out of my eyes by now.
I think Brian's taken be careful what you pray for a little far and twisting that somehow or other. Brian, keep coming back.
Next, we have an email from Woody with the subject CPC episode. I feel saying cooperation with the professional community is too wordy, especially if the local committee also does public information. For a few years now, I've abbreviated the acronym to Public and Professional Communities Presentations, or PPC presentations. Check a past article on CPC titled Shrink Wrap if you have the time. Woody R.
Woody, thanks for writing. I agree that we have all these acronyms and extremely long, wordy titles for things, and it's taken me a long time to just learn what all these. Now I can go CPC cooperation with the. No, I can't do it. Cooperation with the professional community. I can do it in my mind. And PI, public information, but It's taken a long time. You know, I did look up shrink wrap in the Grapevine and couldn't find an article by that title. Is that a Grapevine article you're talking about?
Woody, if you've got a copy of that or can send us directly to it, please email us again and let us know. We'd love to read it.
That'd be cool. Thanks for writing. We got a response to listener Carrie B's question, which CPC/PI episode talked about having a meeting where doctors can attend?
There's those pesky acronyms again.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know the answer to that. We couldn't figure that one out. So, hi, Don. Yeah. Hi, Sam and Don.
Oh, top billing again.
I almost gave myself top billing. I believe that the listener misdescribed the episode that she heard. Season 7, Episode 16, Cooperating with the Courts, I think, is the one she's referring to. The amateur Class A trustee discussed working with local AA members on the CPC committee. Also really enjoyed this week's podcast where you discuss speaker exchanges at Intergroup. In Western Massachusetts, Area 31, we have a bookie meeting just prior to the monthly intergroup meeting, and the January and June meetings can be pretty hectic, just like the stock exchange. Oh, cool. My home group exchanges a speaker meeting with another group monthly, and it's a great way for our groups to get to know each other better. We have the meeting on the way to the meeting after the meeting, grabbing dinner, and the meeting on the ride home. Love the podcast. Keep up the great work. Jack A. Suffield.
I love that. Now, I appreciate you writing to us, Jack. I'm pretty sure, though, that we're talking about a season at least 2 or 3 seasons ago where that episode happened, because I do remember the context. It was sitting around holding a mock meeting so that healthcare professionals, I think, could see what happened. And what happened was the mock meeting became the real thing for the AA members that were doing it.
Yes. Thanks for writing.
Thank you so much for writing in. And I love that you've got the speaker exchange thing going on as well. I have never participated in anything like that, and it sounds like it would be fun.
It does.
Lastly, we got this from Jeremiah L. Subject, won't drink again, ... Something about 9 a.m., that boiled owl. Oh, Jeremiah's one who listens all the way through. Jeremiah writes, greetings. I listened until the very end of last week's episode. I enjoyed the mention of pausing in silence before a meeting. If I can transition, I feel so much connected, whether that be a meeting or in life. For too many years, I wanted the next better experience, even when I was standing in a life greater than I imagined. Since becoming a practicing non-alcoholic, I really have learned to enjoy the pause. Nowadays, I cry twice as much in happiness rather than self-pity. Jeremiah L. in Omaha. Jeremiah, I love that. Yeah, I cry too much too. And it still gets me. I mean, just a commercial can make me cry now.
There's no crying in podcasting, but there is crying in AA. Jeremiah, thanks for writing and thanks for listening to that marathon listener feedback episode.
It was a long episode. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the Grapevine magazine in print or in the AA Grapevine app. Your support makes this podcast possible.
I'm at the very wit's end. Cuckoo. I'm drinking bullfrog gin.
Bullfrog gin? What's that?
You drink a little, hop a little, drink a little, hop a little, drink, 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 then croak.
Ribbit.
It's really not that funny.
Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.